everybody. This is Ron, and welcome back to the Ron Reviews podcast. This is episode 2, and I'm going to talk about comics again. I said that in the first episode, I would pretty much just be covering comics, talking comics. I think a podcast is the way to go to do that because it's a little different than dissecting comics in a video format. And I just think it's been done to death on YouTube, so this is the way I'm gonna talk about comics from here on out. So I was digging through some old long boxes, and I found a lot of my Star Wars comics. I'm talking about the Star Wars comics from Marvel, when not the old ones, not the ones that came out right after the original Star Wars movie, when Disney acquired Lucasfilm, and then obviously we all know that Disney also has Marvel, so they ended up with the Star Wars license yet again, and they started producing a bunch of comics, and I don't blame them for doing that to capitalize on it, because this was right before The Force Awakens was coming out. So this was really the first taste of new Star Wars material. And well, if you've watched this channel for a little while now, you'll know how I feel about Star Wars, especially after The Last Jedi. We don't have to go into all that stuff. I'm not a fan. I'm really not a fan of what Disney has done to Star Wars, but you've also heard a bunch of other YouTubers talk about that to death, so I'm not going to bore you on that. So when I was looking through all of these comics from this pre-Force Awakens period, I started to look through them and think, okay, well, is there anything worth saving, even though I don't really like the direction they took? And I do remember there are 3 issues in the original Star Wars run, written by Jason Aaron. He started off with John Cassidy, who is a very high-profile artist. So they got really top talent on all these books. And overall, I felt like they were a little bit handcuffed because they couldn't really do much with the characters. This was set after A New Hope and before Empire Strikes Back, so there really wasn't much they could have done with Luke and Han and Leia that was really interesting. I just feel like they were just kind of treading water and doing just safe stories. I feel like not a lot happens, and it really should give you more context with these characters instead of the idea that if you just watch all 3 original movies, that's all you need to know about them, and it's almost like these stories didn't matter. Yeah, I mean, I bought a lot of these issues, and it wasn't just Star Wars, too. There were so many different titles. It was Star Wars and Darth Vader, and then there were a lot of comics based on the newer characters from Star Wars Rebels. And there was even a Lando series, Chewbacca. I bought all of it in the beginning. But yeah, I just feel like all the writers were handcuffed and they couldn't really do whatever they wanted because they were restricted by maybe some things that were going to happen in the movies, in the future movies. And then also just the original movies, if they were playing in that time period where they couldn't really make significant changes to the characters because they didn't do this or that yet in the movies. So with all that being said, I wasn't really... I started off really excited with the comics, and then I just feel like I wasn't getting enough out of them. Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like the best word is just treading water. I didn't get a lot of interesting information that I was looking for. I don't even know what I was looking for. I don't know. Just maybe something that would hint at the future movies, something interesting. But we all know that the movies didn't really do anything interesting with the characters anyway. So, well, the new ones. So anyway, I'm looking through this long box of all the Star Wars comics from this era, and I was thinking to myself, okay, well, if I threw all of these out, are there any ones that I would want to save? And I came to the conclusion that I would probably save 3 specific issues, and those are Star Wars issue 7, issue 15 and 20. And the reason I would save those three is because they are stories from the journals of Ben Kenobi. And that's really interesting to me because I've always wondered, as a lifelong Star Wars fan, what Ben Kenobi was doing, when Luke was a young boy and he was watching over him. And that's what these three issues were about, because in the story of this main Star Wars title, Luke finds the journal in Ben Kenobi's house, I think. I think that's when he fights Boba Fett. It was like issue 3 or something. I forget. Anyway, so when he's in the middle of going on certain adventures, he's reading through this journal, and that's where we get these stories from. So yeah, the first issue is obviously written by Jason Aaron, and the art is by Simone Bianchi. I'm probably not pronouncing that right, but I was looking through it again when I reread it, and I was like, why does this look so familiar? And it was I'm pretty sure it's the same artist from a book called Sharky the Bounty Hunter by Mark Miller that I have. So that was cool to see. It's so funny. I love that Mark Miller just finds these really awesome artists and then just snags them from Marvel and DC. It's a pretty baller move. So anyway, this first issue in this Journals of Ben Kenobi trilogy, I guess you could call it, centers around some thugs that Jabba the Hutt hired to go and collect water taxes from people on Tatooine. They are about to go to Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru's house and collect from them, and Ben Kenobi stops them. So this one really doesn't have a lot of Luke in it. It's really focused on Obi-Wan. So it kind of catches you up to speed on what he's been up to. And it's really a whole lot of nothing. He says he's been there for years now. He's got a bigger beard. He looks a little run down, but he's still on this mission to protect Luke. And there's a little bit of his guilt in there, but it was really well done. Jason Aaron's a good writer. The thing that I like about this story in particular is that it involves Luke towards the end, because Luke ends up getting kidnapped by the same thugs that Obi-Wan had an interaction with in the beginning of the story. I was really scared the first time I read it, thinking, now I really wouldn't like a young Luke to see Obi-Wan Kenobi or hang out with him before the original Star Wars, because it just wouldn't make that much sense. Luke meets him for the first time in A New Hope, so it just wouldn't be right to do that. And I like that during the fight or the scuffle, whatever, Luke gets knocked out, so he doesn't really know who saved him or what happened. So I thought that was really smart to do. So yeah, it was a nice first issue to set the stage for bigger and better things, issues 15 and 20. And these issues were drawn by Mike Mayhew, who I know from a trade paperback that I have, which I can't find, and I'm kind of pissed about it. I feel like it's in storage somewhere, or my brother's place or something, I forget. But he does the art for this story called The Star Wars, and it's based on the original script or the original outline for the first Star Wars. So there are a lot of things that are different. And this was published by Dark Horse, because Dark Horse Comics had the license to Star Wars for a really long time before Marvel got it back. So he has done Star Wars before, but I guess by the time I read this, I had forgotten that he was the artist on that story. I love the style. It reminds me a little bit of an Alex Ross thing with the painting. And I'm thumbing through the issues now. I know some people don't like this kind of realistic look, but I like it for comics like this that are based on movie properties, because it just, I don't know, it gives it this feel like this is an extension of the movies. And I don't get that sense when I'm reading something and it looks a little too cartoony. Not that that's a bad thing. It's just, like I said, when I'm trying to get into the world of the movies, I feel like this style works better. And I also like that even though he does the sort of photorealistic style, I like that his Luke and his Obi-Wan don't just look like Mark Hamill or Ewan McGregor or Alec Guinness. It's kind of his own thing. And in my mind, it's kind of like I kind of read it as a prequel to the original Star Wars before they cast Ewan McGregor. So it's like, all right, maybe this is what a young Alec Guinness would have looked like. And that's fun to think of it that way. But again, the story is very simple. All of the character stuff, especially with Uncle Owen and obviously with Obi-Wan, is pretty spot on. Luke's uncle Owen is not happy with him wanting to be a pilot and getting himself into trouble because he's very protective over Luke, which I totally understand. So it was really cool to see that in the beginning, and then I like that Obi-Wan or Ben is kind of like his silent guardian. At one point, he takes some parts that he needed for his ship to repair it and gives it to him without him knowing that it's from him, and Luke thinks it's from Uncle Owen. So it was just a cool way of doing that, just looking after him without showing himself or introducing himself, because he's not supposed to do that. And like I said, it wouldn't make sense because they don't meet until A New Hope. But this leads Owen to go to Ben's house and basically tell him to stay away from Luke. And even though, we're all on Ben's side because we've known him from all the movies, Owen makes a lot of sense. He doesn't want him to become like his father. And we know that from the first movie as well. So it's just all really good. And the reason, as I'm looking through this stuff, the reason I would pick these 3 issues to keep if I had to get rid of all these other ones is because of stuff like that. This fits in with the movies. I believe that this happened in the world. And I can't really say the same about all the other titles when they start getting a little more out there and they introduce new characters that don't feel like they fit in the world. I'm thinking of Dr. Aphra. She was this character in the Darth Vader series that just kind of, I don't know, put a bad taste in my mouth in the beginning because it just wasn't believable to me that Darth Vader would have someone like this around as a sort of sidekick. So yeah, I feel like those are the bad parts of these comics, and something like this is very authentic to the Star Wars brand. It doesn't hurt that it looks great too, and it looks like an extension of the movies, like I said. So yeah, Jabba the Hutt is involved in this because he wants to hire someone to get rid of Obi-Wan because of the trouble he's been starting with his thugs from the previous issue in this little trilogy. And I forget the name of the guy. I remember I reviewed not the Mandalorian, Boba Fett. It's Black Chrysanthemum or something. It's the evil Wookiee bounty hunter first introduced in these comics. So that was cool because you get a little crossover from the main story into this one. And that's basically what happens from here on. It's just Black Chrysanthemum kidnaps Owen to try to lure Ben out to fight him. And the action's great. And again, they use Luke, but it's not like he's coming to save the day with Obi-Wan and they're going to fight together because it would just make no sense. So yeah, going through and rereading these, I still really enjoyed them. I thought it was nice at the end. You just get a subtle look between Ben and Uncle Owen when the whole fight ends and Luke saves Uncle Owen. They're all living happily ever after. He kind of gives Ben this look like, okay, you stay around. Maybe don't, give him parts for his ship, but I'm glad you're around because if we ever get into trouble, I know there's going to be someone here to help us. So it was really nice. Everything I just said is the reason why these three in particular would be the ones that I would save. An honorable mention would be a little arc. I think it's like 5 issues or so with art by Stuart Immonen, who I'm a fan of. And I mean, there are other good artists in here too, but yeah, I don't know. Some of the stories with Luke, Han, and Leia, you would think they would be interesting, but some of them are kind of boring. So yeah, I mean, if you'd like to hunt these down and check them out, it's issues 7, 15, and 20. And then I think they might have done a trade paperback that is just from the journals of Obi-Wan, and it collects these issues. So there you go. Not everything in the Marvel, Disney, Star Wars canon is all that bad. There's some pretty good stuff in there. So let me know what you guys thought about these issues if you've read them. And please be sure to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this content. It really helps out the channel. And thanks for watching. Hey everyone, it's Ron here with a quick announcement. When I started this channel, I was reading and reviewing the Dune books and other sci-fi related material. And most of you might not know that I'm also a musician. So when I was reading these sci-fi books, I started to get inspired and decided to make my own soundtrack to use for my videos, and now I'm excited to tell you all about the first volume in the Ron Reviews original soundtrack collection. This album includes the first 17 tracks featured on my channel, and it's available now exclusively on Bandcamp. Be sure to check the description of this video for the link to the album. Thanks so much for the support so far. I know I'm just starting out, but I hope you're having as much fun as I am. So check out the original soundtrack Volume 1 on Bandcamp. This music is great if you want something moody and atmospheric to listen to while you're reading some science fiction. I think you're going to love it. Thanks.